Once, there was a man named Bluebeard, a noble of immense wealth and mystery. His beard, as dark as a raven's wing, was said to be the mark of his cursed soul. He had married many times, yet none of his wives were ever seen again. The village whispered of his monstrous nature, but none dared to speak openly, for gold often outweighs suspicion. And when a family was desperate enough, they looked past the rumors and into the glittering promise of security. This is how Élise came to be his bride. Élise had grown up on the edge of nobility, the daughter of a failing house whose riches had long since turned to dust. Her father had been a gambler, a man who bet on fortunes and lost, leaving his children with a legacy of debt and shame. Her mother had died when she was young, leaving only her 2 brothers to guide her future. And guide her they did, straight into the hands of a monster. She had objected, of course. She had wept and pleaded, but her brothers would not listen. "Do you think you deserve better?" her eldest had sneered. "You are lucky he has even looked at you." But she saw the truth in their eyes. It was not about her happiness. It was about their survival. In her childhood, she had dreamt of freedom, of running away from the crumbling estate, of making her own choices. There had been a boy once, a stable hand she had whispered dreams to in the dead of night. They had spoken of faraway lands, of simple lives filled with love instead of duty. But that dream had been stripped from her the moment her brothers accepted Bluebeard's offer. "You will save us all, Élise," her youngest brother had said, his voice almost kind. "Do not be selfish." And so, she was married. His estate was an expanse of stone and silence. The great hall swallowed sound, and the servants kept their eyes downturned, moving like spectres rather than people. The air felt thick with something unspoken. Occasionally, Élise would hear faint whispers from behind the walls. But when she turned, there was nothing. The first few days she convinced herself that she could be content. Bluebeard was distant but not cruel, at least not yet. He spoke softly, watched her with an unnerving patience, and gifted her beautiful things. He never raised his voice, but the quietness of the house gnawed at her, and her unease grew with each passing night. At dinner, she once asked a maid where the other servants were, why the halls felt so empty. The woman paled and said nothing. Another time, Élise found a locked door deep in the west wing, but when she asked about it, Bluebeard only smiled. "Some doors are better left unopened, my dear." Her nights were restless. She dreamt of voices calling her name, of soft hands brushing against her hair. Sometimes she would wake to find her bed curtains swaying, though there was no breeze. Once, she swore she heard someone weeping, but when she opened her door, the halls were empty. And then there was the forbidden key. "You may go anywhere," Bluebeard had told her, placing the ring of keys in her palm. "Except for one place. Promise me you will never use this key." She promised. But curiosity is a disease, and the house itself seemed to whisper its temptations. The door groaned open, revealing a chamber bathed in the stench of iron and rot. But what she found was worse than death. The women, his wives, were alive, chained along the walls. Their bodies bore the marks of long suffering. Scars, old and new, laced their skin like grotesque embroidery. Their eyes, glassy, haunted, flicked with a dull awareness as they turned toward her. "Another one of them rasped. Élise stumbled back, bile rising in her throat. I can get help. I can get you out." One of the wives, her lips cracked and dry, shook her head. Run, before he knows. But it's too late for us, another croaked. But not for you. One wife, a woman with long silver hair, grasped Élise's hand. Her grip was weak but insistent. He enjoys the game. You were always meant to find this room. Now he will see what you do next. A key turned in the lock. Bluebeard's face was unreadable as he stood in the doorway. The flickering torchlight cast his shadow long and distorted across the stone floor. Élise felt a pulse thundering in her ears. "You should not have done that," he murmured, almost regretfully. She fled past him, feet barely touching the cold ground as she ran. She locked herself in her chamber, hands trembling as she penned a frantic letter to her brothers. "Come at once. Bluebeard is a monster. I am in danger." Days passed. Bluebeard watched her with knowing eyes, but he said nothing. The whispers in the walls grew louder, now murmuring her name. Then finally, her salvation arrived. Her brothers. She ran to them the moment they stepped inside, sobbing with relief. "We must leave, now! You have to get me out." But her brothers did not move. Instead, they turned to Bluebeard, clasping his hands with the warmth of old friends. Élise's blood ran cold. "We appreciate your patience, friend," her eldest brother said. "She is yours now." The room tilted. What? Bluebeard exhaled, amused. "Did you truly think they would save you? They delivered you to me, Élise, just as they did the others." She backed away, horror consuming her. "You sold me." Her brothers did not flinch. "You were the price for our security. You should be honored, sister." Hands closed around her wrists. "No!" The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Bluebeard's smile. Élise woke to cold stone and iron chains. The wives surrounded her, silent and watching, their hollow gazes filled with understanding. She was one of them now. Just another whisper for the next unfortunate bride. And soon, the cycle would begin again. Thank you for joining us in the world of Twilight Fables. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.